It's a very interesting time of the year because it is the month of April. Water temperatures are in the 50s. So these fish will be moving up, hopefully the bigger fish, which is what we're after. We're going to be targeting a lot of deep water and bluffs, primarily a lot of areas where the channel runs very close to the shore, which is a fantastic staging area for the bigger fish.
What's that for?
That's just to rest my rods on. You know, these aluminum boats have very rough edges, and your rods take a beating on that stuff.
So tell me a little bit about this body of water. How big is it?
We have a little, it's a little over 2,000 acres. The other end of it exceeds 100 feet. This section here runs to approximately 40 to 45 feet of water. This is essentially the inlet. There's one little corner here where, as I said, the creek channel butts right up to the shore, and that's a target point that we want to be on. We're just about on it. So if I move out a little bit, you'll see how dramatically she'll start to drop. You notice that? How quickly it's dropping?
Oh yeah.
That's because we're right on a creek channel right now. Just a little further down, it comes even closer to shore, but typically from here is a good start. So, well, there's one fish suspended already. The fish is suspended at 20 feet over 26 feet. Right now we're tossing a football jig on a hula grub for this area where we're deeper. And as we get into the wood and some of the areas that are a little tighter to shore, we'll be throwing a different type of jig.
So talk to me a little bit how you're working that jig.
What we're doing is, again, due to the water being a little on the colder side, well, it's not really cold, but if it was summer, I would be hopping it and working it a little faster. Right now, I'm just generally just inching it along the bottom.
Dragging it?
I'm dragging it, yes. Typically, this time of the year, the fish have a tendency to be what I call looking up, meaning that they're primarily feeding on bait fish. Crayfish have a tendency to start roaming and coming out as the water warms a bit. That doesn't mean that it won't bite a jig, but it just, I feel that it's always better to work the jig much slower now to give them a little more time to focus on, as I said, generally because the fish have a tendency to be looking up, generally.
Are you seeing anything on the graph there?
Well, I'm not watching that for fish. I just want to make sure that, you know, as you could see, we're in 28.5 feet of water and we're very close to shore. That's because the channel swings right up very tight to this bank. Where I'm actually throwing is in about 10 feet of water, and I'm working it out just off the drop of the channel. It tends to be what I like to call a pressure hit. So you don't generally feel when they hit the jig. As the water warms up and the fish become a little more active, when they are active, you tend to get like a thunk on the jig, and it's generally very distinguishable. But when the water's cold like this, and especially if they're a little on the inactive side, it could be very difficult to detect the bite. This part of the shore that we're approaching now tends to have a lot of brush. So we're going to change tactics up a little bit now. We're going to go in a little closer to shore, we're going to put on a lighter, different type of a jig. And we're going to explore some of that brush. That's another great thing about a jig, is that when you're fishing these type of places, it gives such great feedback. You know exactly what's down there.
Tell me exactly what your rod and reel setup is there.
This is a Shimano Chronarch. This is a 7-to-1 gear ratio reel. This has 30 inches of IPT, inches per turn. That's, again, for me, that's very important, because when jig fishing, particularly in bluffy areas like this, the fish have a tendency to run under the boat like this one just did, and it's very difficult to keep up with them without dropping them. This feels like a nice fish.
Oh yeah.
It's about 3 and change.
We'll take that any
Nice
day.
little specimen. What happened there was I felt a little tap, but at the same time I saw my line starting to move, which is how I knew it was a fish. Otherwise it would have been very difficult to detect, simply because, as I said, with all the brush that's down there, sometimes it could be a challenge to distinguish the difference between, on the initial hit, between the brush, or a fish. So I'm a huge line watcher.